Questions orales, oral questions.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. We've just learned that the Bloc will be voting to keep the most costly Prime Minister and most centralizing Prime Minister in history in power. A government that's doubled the cost of housing, doubled the national debt, increased the cost of groceries, broken our immigration system, pushing Quebec to the breaking point. How can the Bloc abandon Quebecers to prop up this Prime Minister, the most costly and centralizing one in our country's history? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Once again, Mr. Speaker, we see the Leader of the Opposition is only concerned about his own political interests and not the interests of Canadians and Quebecers. That's why we're going to keep investing in Canadians. We're going to be there for Quebecers with health care, dental care, more child care places, instead of proposing cuts and austerity, which we know the Conservative leader would impose on everyone. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Canadians' interest is in cutting taxes, building houses, fixing the budget, and stopping crime so that Quebecers can bring home bigger paychecks and pensions that will be enough to afford housing and food. That's after 9 years of the Liberal Bloc coalition. They've doubled the debt, doubled the cost of living, and broken our immigration system. Why is the Bloc propping up this expensive and centralizing government? The Honourable Prime Minister. Once again, we see the Conservative leader believes in slogans, but not in Canadians and Quebecers. He doesn't want to invest to help people with dental care. He doesn't want to be there to help our seniors, to help young people. He just wants to cut programs. He voted against our climate action, against checks that people need, but he wants nothing to do with that. He's obsessed with his own thirst for power. We're concerned about Quebecers and Canadians, and we're working for them.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The NDP leader sold out Canadians to sign on to a costly coalition that doubled the debt, doubled the housing costs, sent 2 million people to food banks and 1,800 tent encampments. He voted 24 times for the carbon tax. And since he did his dramatic video, he's refused to answer 40 times whether he'd vote non-confidence. Now that he knows that the Bloc is going to keep the Liberals in power, he'll stand up and claim that he's voting against. Mr. Speaker, why won't the NDP stand up when it counts so that we can end this costly coalition and elect a common-sense government?
Before the Prime Minister takes a crowd, I'm going to ask the Honourable Member from New Westminster, Burnaby, please, to only take the microphone when his voice is recognized. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, we see that the Leader of the Opposition enjoys his political games, enjoys chasing after his own political interests, and has not a second to care for Canadians' interests. He's actually in a bad mood because inflation has come down for Canadians. He doesn't care about their interests. That's why we're going to continue to deliver for Canadians. We're going to continue to step up with investments that are going to support Canadians, fight climate change, and build a brighter future for everyone.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of this costly NDP carbon tax coalition, what's happened? What's up? Taxes up, costs up, crime's up, time's up. What Canadians need is hope. By choosing a common-sense government that axes taxes, builds homes, fixes the budget, and stops the crime so they can earn powerful paychecks and pensions that buy affordable food, gas, and homes in safe neighborhoods protected by a strong military. Why can't we bring it home now?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that little performance shows just how much the Leader of the Opposition loves his slogans, but actually doesn't put forward any.
I'm going to ask, as I'd ask a previous member before, to please not take the floor unless they're recognized. I'm going to ask all members, please, to allow the member to. I'll ask Prime Minister, Right Honourable Prime Minister, to start from the top.
Boy, Mr. Speaker, point out the performance of the Leader of the Opposition, and his colleagues get all upset because they know that he doesn't actually care about Canadians. He doesn't care about the programs we're delivering. He doesn't care about stepping up to support Canadians. He's actually in a bad mood because inflation has come down to 2%, Mr. Speaker, and it ruins his little just inflation slogan. He is so upset because he's cared about his own interests and not the interests of Canadians. We're going to stay focused on the things that matter for people while he spins little rhymes and tosses out his slogans. We'll take this seriously like we always have.
If anyone had any doubt, it's definitely Wednesday. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the just inflation tagline works now better than ever. He can try to call himself Rocky Balboa and play fight songs to aggrandize himself as the star. But the people lined up at food banks, 2 million of them every month, know better. The people who are living in the 1,800 Ontario tent encampments know better. The 35 homeless encampments in Halifax, the people there know better. They know that we need to fire this costly carbon tax coalition so we can elect a common sense government that will bring it home for them.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, he sure loves to declaim about vulnerable people and perform his empathetic supposed concern. But the reality is he is using vulnerable people for his own political gains. If he actually cared about people, he wouldn't have voted against dental care for 700,000 seniors. He wouldn't have voted against a school food policy that's helping families with $800 worth of groceries a year. He's not making the investments in Canadians. He wants to cut programs, make Canadians suffer, so he can sit in the big chair.
Alors.
Order.
Order. Then I have
the Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The Prime Minister appointed a special envoy to fight Islamophobia, and she felt that her terms of reference included criticizing Quebec's universities for not providing for student security. Perhaps we don't see Islamophobia in the same way because some would say that this position is, strictly speaking, a liberal activist and political position. So I'd like to ask the Prime Minister, what is his definition of Islamophobia? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, this government recognized that there was a rise in intolerance of all kinds all across the country, and we had a duty to recognize that and fight against it. That's why we appointed a special representative against Islamophobia and also a special rep against anti-Semitism. And we also recognize systemic discrimination in our institutions. So we have lots of challenges to face in bringing Canadians together and in addressing our challenges together to create a more peaceful and respectful country, the country that we now have. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. This is no small thing. The Prime Minister does not know the definition of Islamophobia. Does he think that without a definition, criticizing Quebec universities reduces Islamophobia somehow? Or does it rather polarize Canadians and pit them against one another? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as the member opposite knows full well, I am a proud Quebecer, and I am proud that the Liberal Party of Canada has more Quebec members than the Bloc Québécois does. So we are proud Canadians, proud Quebecers, and we know that in every institution all across country there are challenges around racism, systemic discrimination, and so on, and we need to address those issues, and that's the work we're doing because we know everyone should feel included and respected within our country, and unfortunately, we're seeing a rise in intolerance all across the country. So it's our duty, all of our duties, to come together and listen to one another. The honourable member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, all over the country, Conservative governments are privatizing our health care. They want people to have to pay to see a doctor, and it's no different in Quebec. But this Prime Minister is too weak to stand up to the Conservatives, and the people are the ones paying the price. What's it going to take for him to stand up to defend the principles of universal public health care? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we all know that the NDP is concerned about progressive values all across the country, but they can't deliver the goods. We were happy to work with them to deliver concrete things in healthcare, in childcare for Canadians, but unfortunately, they're the ones who decided to stop delivering the goods for Canadians. Progressive things are not always easy to accomplish, but we will continue fighting to do so. We will continue to defend our public health care system, and we will keep investing in the Canadian system. But unfortunately, the NDP can't say the same.
The honourable member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
They are failing on health care and they are failing on groceries because 1 year ago today, the Liberals met with Canada's grocery CEOs and promised to stabilize prices. A year later, prices are still up. Grocery CEOs are still gouging families struggling to put food on the table. Meanwhile, the Conservatives remain silent on grocery greed, and they want to give even more taxpayer money to these CEOs. Canadians are fed up. They are working harder and falling further behind. Why does this Prime Minister keep caving to CEOs while Canadians pay the price?
Hear, hear!
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, the NDP is taking a page out of the Conservative playbook and choosing slogans rather than the hard work that will actually help Canadians. Right. We've delivered some of the most comprehensive reforms to the Competition Act in order to hold big grocers account for the work that they're doing in terms of delivering for Canadians. We've also moved forward on a national school food program that's putting more food in the bellies of 400,000 kids across the country as provinces come on board, and is going to save parents up to $800 on their grocery bills. These are things tangibly that we're busy delivering while they're playing politics.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
April 30th, 2014. Life in Canada, home of the world's most affluent middle class, the New York Times. Yet, today, almost a decade after that NDP Liberal Prime Minister has been in what he calls the big chair, Canada's GDP per capita is actually down, while the American one is up 19%. His carbon taxes are strangling growth. How could the solution possibly be to quadruple the tax to 61 cents a litre and send more jobs and businesses south?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, we know the Leader of the Opposition doesn't believe in climate change and doesn't believe in putting more money in the pockets of Canadians with a Canada carbon rebate. How many wildfires, hurricanes, droughts are going to go after Canadians' lives and livelihoods before he understands you can't have a plan for the economy unless you have a plan for the environment?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He doesn't have a plan for either, as evidenced by the fact that he came completely unglued and started spitting out personal insults and crying, "Liar, liar, liar," on a radio station the other day when he learned that I had pointed to his own government report, which showed that his carbon tax will blow a $25 to $30 billion hole in our GDP. This was from a report that his government tabled in the House of Commons. If, in fact, his government is lying about the true cost of the carbon tax to our economy, then what is the true cost?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Parliamentary Budget Officer demonstrated that 8 out of 10 Canadian families do better with the Canada Carbon Rebate every 3 months than the cost of the price on pollution. And on top of that, Canadians know the price on pollution has brought down our emissions faster than any other G7 country at the same time as it is supporting Canadians in the middle class and working hard to join it. We're going to continue to fight climate change and invest in a strong economy for the future, while the Leader of the Opposition continues to deny climate change and cut programs and services that Canadians rely on.
That's right.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, you can't sit in the big chair if you can't read your own government documents. The Environment and Climate Change Canada carbon pollution pricing data tabled in this House by his government said that it will cost between $25 and $30 billion in lost GDP when this tax is implemented. A further document tabled by his Environment Minister on Carbon Tax 2 says there will be another $9 billion hole for a total of between $34 and $40 billion. Now he screams that this is all lies. Again, if his government documents are lying, what is the true cost of the carbon tax to our economy?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, every Canadian, except perhaps the Canadians in the Conservative Party of Canada, understand that the costs of inaction on climate change will be catastrophic, not just with wildfires, droughts, floods, hurricanes, but with lost economic opportunity, lost jobs, lost growth for Canadians as we solve the challenges of the 21st century. We are choosing to invest in a strong economy for the future. We're choosing to fight climate change and develop the solutions that the world's going to need to do that, while the Leader of the Opposition offers a do-nothing climate change plan that will cost Canadians billions.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
His carbon tax has not stopped a single flood, or single fire in this country. He's not stopped any natural disasters. What he has done is driven Canadians into poverty, quadrupling the tax to 61 cents a litre will cause a nuclear winter for our economy. Something that his carbon tax coalition partners in the NDP have voted to bring about. So if he really is so confident in a 61 cent a litre tax, why doesn't he call a carbon tax election and let Canadians decide?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the problem with the Leader of the Opposition is he believes in slogans. He just doesn't believe in climate change. The fact is, our plan to fight climate change is not just putting more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians across the country, but is bringing down emissions and creating jobs and opportunity for Canadians for generations to come. His climate change denialism, his do-nothing plan to fight climate change is going to hurt Canadians. We are going to continue to build a strong economy for the future because we know fighting climate change is part of it.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
But he's not fighting climate change. He's driving production out of Canada to more polluting for foreign jurisdictions, rather than our common sense plan to greenlight green projects that produce more energy around the world that displace emissions. That's a common sense approach. And he still won't answer the question, though, on the full cost of his 2 carbon taxes. I've cited government documents tabled in this House that say that it will total between $34 and $40 billion per year in lost GDP and jobs. If his government documents are wrong, then what is the true loss of GDP as a result of his 61 cent a litre carbon tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, he talks about driving investment out of Canada. He must be remembering his own time as minister, because since 2016, Mr. Speaker, foreign direct investment is up 60% in this country. Last year, we were 3rd in the world after the U.S. and Brazil, which makes us #1 for foreign investment in the G20 per capita. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, we are continuing to show the world that they can have confidence in Canada and in Canadians. Why doesn't he have confidence in Canadians? Why won't he invest in Canada?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Deputy Governor of the Bank of Canada said of Canada's investment problems, emergency break glass. Canadian workers get 55 cents of investment for every dollar American workers get, and only 65 cents for every dollar that an OECD worker gets. The gap between the Canadian and U.S. economy is now at a 100-year high after 9 years of the NDP Liberals. So one last time, his own documents show that his 61 cent a litre carbon tax will blow a $40 billion hole in our economy. If that number's not right, what is the real number?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again we see that the Leader of the Opposition is frustrated that international economists, climate experts, academics all back our plan to both fight climate change and grow a strong economy, while he's stuck with late-night far-right conspiracy YouTube videos. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, we are delivering concretely to build a stronger future for Canadians, to fight climate change and to grow the economy, while he is hiding his head in the sand and refusing to admit even that climate change is real.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. A unanimous motion by the Quebec Assembly that education comes under Quebec's exclusive jurisdiction and hiring professors should be based on merit and certainly not based on religion. They reiterate that hiring based on religion is not only discriminatory, but it goes against state secularism. And the National Assembly repeats its request to have the special envoy on Islamophobia fired. I'd just like to remind all members, I know there was a lot of content in that question, and it's difficult for our interpreters to interpret all of that. And so we should speak at a speed that's reasonable for our interpreters. Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, let me be crystal clear. The universities have to hire the best possible people for the job. That's their job. But we also recognize that universities have policies that they've put in place to ensure that their staff reflect the diversity of the communities they serve. So I have full confidence in our universities, and we must always keep fighting systemic discrimination in all our institutions from coast to coast to coast. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Does it take 9 years to learn not to answer questions? The National Assembly of Quebec unanimously said that your person has insulted all of us. We're calling for her resignation. Are you on Ms. El-Gawabi's position against Quebec? Are you on her side and against the National Assembly of Quebec with all its elected representatives? If not, let it be known.
Le très honorable Premier Ministre.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. To suggest in this place that a member from Quebec elected by Quebecers does not represent his constituents is an insult to this very place, and the Bloc, which was elected to this place, should be ashamed of saying such a thing.
L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
2000 to 2014, Canadians attracted $30 to $100 billion more of American investment than the reverse. In the last 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, there have been $450 billion more Canadian dollars invested in the U.S. than the return. That's Canadian money building U.S. pipelines, U.S. mines, U.S. businesses paying American workers with Canadian money. That is the consequence of a high carbon tax and a high energy price that drives jobs away. When will the Prime Minister learn that his radical plan to hike the tax to 61 cents a litre will destroy our economy further?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The problem with that argument, Mr. Speaker, is that the Leader of the Opposition doesn't understand that the International Monetary Fund and others have projected Canada to have stronger growth than the United States next year, despite the fact that we have a price on pollution, or perhaps because of the fact we have a price on pollution that is drawing in investment from around the world in the growing sectors of the economy to ensure good jobs in mining, in environmental research, in various industries, because we know the future is greener.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Our per capita GDP is smaller than it was 10 years ago, perhaps the first time since the Great Depression that has happened. He's had the worst economic growth since the Depression. The OECD says that Canada will have the worst economic growth this year and for the next 3 decades. Our economy has dropped more per capita since before COVID than any other G7 country. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. This Prime Minister wants to quadruple the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre, which will be an economic catastrophe for this country.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what that little performance just showed is that the Leader of the Opposition is using his brokenest argument around Canada to explain why he would cut dental programs, cut child care, step away from any climate action, withdraw support to draw in investment. That's his excuse. The problem with that argument, however, Mr. Speaker, is Canada actually has the strongest fiscal position of any of the world's advanced economies, and our choice is putting that strong fiscal position in service of investment in Canadians, in dental, in childcare, in pharma, in...
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
There he goes again, telling Canadians they've never had it so good. It's never been so good for those 2 million people lined up at food banks. For the 1 million people every month that go to food banks in Ontario, record-smashing increases in homelessness by his own admission, after he promised a food program that hasn't delivered a single meal, despite millions spent on bureaucracy. 1 in 4 kids line up at food banks. And now, the worst. He proposes to quadruple the carbon taxes on heat, housing, fuel, and food. How much, and how much will that take from our GDP?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the problem that he will not the problem he has is that he cannot admit that the price on pollution puts more money back in the pockets of middle-class Canadians and those working hard to join it. He continues to spew the line that Canada is broken, and whenever I point out that we have a strong fiscal balance sheet that we should be putting in service of programs and supports for Canadians, he says, no, we need cuts. That is not the path forward for Canada, and that's the choice Canadians get to make. Do we go with austerity and cuts to programs, or do we invest in Canadians and their future?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Canadians who can't eat, heat, or house themselves are living in austerity now. And as to his false PMO talking point about 8 out of 10 Canadians being better off, it conveniently excludes the $25 billion per year in economic costs that his own government admits that the carbon tax imposes on Canadians. And that's why 6 in 10 Canadian families and 100% of the middle class are worse off with his carbon tax. So his documents show Canadians are worse off. If he doesn't have confidence in his own government documents, how can this House have confidence in his government?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Millions of Canadians across the country have received the Canada Carbon Rebate checks that puts more money in their pockets every 3 months than it costs them on average on the price on pollution. That allows us not only to fight climate change and boost our economy in strong ways that create the innovative solutions that the world is going to increasingly rely on, but it helps Canadians with affordability at a challenging time. He would eliminate those Canada Carbon Rebate checks and put forward no plan to fight climate change. That's not how you build the future for Canada.
The honourable member from Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, under the Liberals, housing prices in Winnipeg are out of control. The average rent for a one-bedroom suite in Winnipeg increased over 22% since last year, the largest jump in the country. Corporate landlords are buying up affordable housing and jacking up rents because they know they have support of both the Liberals and the Conservatives. Well, I can tell you one thing, Mr. Speaker, they are not the answer to our housing crisis. So my question to the Prime Minister, why is he allowing corporate landlords to price people out of their homes?
Here, here, here.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I very much look forward to working with the NDP Premier of Manitoba on Renters' Bill of Rights. We just presented a number of measures that will directly help renters, like ensuring that rent is counted towards calculation of credit scores so people can get a mortgage, by protecting renters from landlords. We recognize, as I'm sure do the NDP, that that is largely a provincial jurisdiction, but I'm very glad to hear that the Premier of NDP, the NDP Premier of Manitoba will be stepping up to work with the federal government on delivering for Canadians in Manitoba and indeed right across the country.
The honourable member from Edmonton-Griesbach.
What is in provincial jurisdiction is what's happening in Edmonton-Griesbach, where the federal government is set to bulldoze hundreds of homes in my community so that developers get rich. These homes are on public land and are some of the last affordable units in my city due to decades of Liberal and Conservative cuts. Families like Kim's, a single mom raising a child with a family with a member with a disability, is scared she will be homeless. Will the Prime Minister stop the dem evictions, stop selling off land to rich developers, and build the homes that people can actually afford?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government put forward one of the most ambitious investments in housing that this country has ever seen. And we are happy to work hand in hand with the NDP to make sure that public lands get used for affordable housing, that we're doing everything we can to push back against provinces that are attacking public affordability of homes. We would very much like to continue working with the NDP on this matter. They're choosing to play politics with the Conservatives and put politics first. We're going to continue to work to make sure that his residents in Edmonton-Griesbach and indeed right across the country get better affordability, better homes, because that's what this federal government is focused on, not politics.
The honourable member from Kingston and the Islands.
Mr. Speaker, earlier this month, the U.S. Department of Justice revealed that Russia is funneling money to conservative media figures to push their far-right propaganda. This is a clear threat to our democracy and Canada's national security. And yet,
I'm going to ask the honourable member to please take a seat. I would ask. I would like to ask all honourable members to please not take their time out of turn on both sides of the House so that we can hear the question that's being asked. I'm going to invite the honourable member from Kingston and the Islands to start from the top so that the Speaker can hear the question. And I ask all members to please hold with their comments. The honourable member from Kingston and the Islands.
Mr. Speaker, earlier this month, the U.S. Department of Justice revealed that Russia is funneling money to conservative media figures to push a far-right propaganda. This is a clear threat to our democracy and Canada's national security. And yet, the leader of the Conservative Party is directing his MPs to block the Public Safety Committee's study on this real issue. Can the Prime Minister tell this House what our government is doing to protect Canadians from this very real threat of foreign interference?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for Kingston and the Islands for his advocacy on this unbelievably important issue. It's extremely alarming that Russia is pushing its propaganda in our democracy, but even more appalling that they are using far-right Canadian conservative influencers to divide Canadians. We must all stand against this. I call on all parties, including the Conservative Party of Canada, to stand up and investigate these allegations and follow up on it. Let it get through committee.
Order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Under 9 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, housing costs have doubled. Now, he said he was going to create a $4 billion fund to give to cities to speed up home building. So he gave Toronto City Hall $500 million. What did they do? Hiked building taxes by 42%. He gave Ottawa City Hall $200 million, so they could hike taxes by 11%. He gave Mississauga City Hall $113 million, so they could hike taxes by 22%. Why does he keep funding bloated local government gatekeepers that block housing rather than building the homes?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let us not take any lessons from that failed Harper housing minister who didn't get anything built while he was on the job. We're going to continue to do what he didn't, which is working with cities, working with provinces and territories, working with nonprofits to get homes built.
That's right.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
They're not being built. In fact, housing construction is down, way down. And he should take lessons from everyone because he has the worst housing inflation in Canadian history and by far the worst housing inflation in the G7 after 9 years in power. And now he's bloating up the same bureaucracies that have given us the slowest building permits in the G7. Why won't he follow my common sense plan to link federal dollars to housing completions to incentivize local governments to speed up permits, free up land, and actually cut building taxes?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition's so-called housing plan was universally panned by experts, which is why it failed in this House of Commons. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, we have been working with premiers, working with municipalities, working with nonprofits to turn the ship around that he neglected when he was so-called housing minister. The reality is we are delivering for Canadians. We have a lot more work to do, and his slogans and divisive attacks aren't going to get any homes built for anyone.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, when I was housing minister, the average home price was $450,000. The rent was $950 for a one-bedroom, $1,100 for a two-bedroom. It's now doubled to over $2,000. And we built almost 200,000 homes at those rock-bottom low prices. So now, fast forward a decade, 28% of Canadians tell a RE/MAX survey they're considering leaving the country because of housing inflation doubling under this Prime Minister. So why doesn't he get his gatekeepers out of the way and follow my common sense plan to build the homes?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, like in so many of his plan consists entirely of slogans and personal attacks on me, on mayors, on Canadians who are working to get things done. We are investing in partnership with municipalities to change zoning laws, to invest in public lands, to support nonprofits to build more units. I was just in Vancouver meeting with the extraordinary folks of the Vancouver Chinatown Foundation that are delivering a unit that this young woman can now live in and afford because of investments this federal government has delivered. We're going to be there for Canadians while he's there for himself.
That's right.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
La semaine dernière.
Last week, a woman was stabbed near a hard drugs injection site the Maison Benoît Labre near a primary school. This tragedy could have been avoided if the Prime Minister had accepted what I asked around 3 months ago. I asked for hard drug injection sites to be closed and for money to be invested in drug treatment. Will the Prime Minister finally close down this hard drug injection site, which is right near a school? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, all Canadians deserve to live in safe communities, and that is a responsibility we take seriously. But part of taking a challenge like this seriously is listening to experts and listening to people working on the front lines of the opioid and toxic drug crisis in order to help people to get through these difficult times. Yes, we need to invest in help for these people. We also need to invest in ways to protect Canadians. We will base what we do on science and evidence, not on ideology and politics. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, I would like the Prime Minister to tell me from what date to what date he was part of the National Assembly of Quebec. I don't seem to recall it, but if all of the parties here want to fight Islamophobia and polarization, they should consider adopting legislation tabled by the Bloc Québécois, which would put an end to the religious grounds for hate speech. Will the Prime Minister accept that before it's too late for him? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the leader of the Bloc Québécois keeps insisting on this. But he has just said very clearly that federal MPs from Quebec have less legitimacy than members in the National Assembly of Quebec. Well, I might really ask myself, hell, what is the Bloc Québécois doing here if they have so little legitimacy? I would like to invite the Prime Minister to withdraw this unparliamentary language. I'm sure he can use other words to express his point. He has 10 seconds left. Mr. Speaker, I'm being very clear. We are here to defend Quebec's interests in Ottawa at the federal level. I don't know what my colleague is even doing here if he doesn't think he has legitimacy to speak for Quebec.
Avant qu'on continue,
Before going on, this is an important point. I would just like to ask the Prime Minister to withdraw the unparliamentary language. And the Right Honourable Prime Minister said, I withdraw the word. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Oh, the Right Honourable Prime Minister. No, I'm sorry. I used the expression mot de campagne to describe what I said, but that's not accurate. I used a different word. I would like to withdraw that. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, perhaps I was not clear, or perhaps Mr. Trudeau. No, I'm sorry. Yes, I know that the Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly is a very experienced member. Of course, he made a mistake. I would invite him to start over again and to respect the rules of this place. Yes, I withdraw that vulgar language.
Monsieur le Président, le Premier ministre est la preuve.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is living proof that we need to do more to protect French because he didn't understand what I said. I would like Parliament to adopt legislation that would put an end to religious exemptions. He is a Quebec MP here in Ottawa. He should pay attention to the fact that this is what Quebec wants.
le très honorable Premier ministre.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, in our federal system, the reality is that we have Quebec MPs elected to represent Quebec. And they do that in Quebec, in the National Assembly, but they can also represent Quebec in Ottawa and represent other Canadians as well. As a proud Quebecer, I will continue to do my job to protect my constituents in Papineau, and I will also be there to pay close attention to the well-being of the entire country.
Chef de l'opposition.
Quote, children are not able to buy alcohol. They're not able to buy marijuana or cigarettes, but they can have access to crack pipes and kits to be able to do so-called safe injection. It's just wrong. These are the words of the stepfather of Brianna McDonald, the 13-year-old girl who lost her life to a drug overdose in Abbotsford after she was denied treatment but offered drug paraphernalia by the authorities. When will the Prime Minister end this radical agenda, close the drug dens, defund unsafe supply, and treat addiction to bring our loved ones home drug-free?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, tragedies like that are unthinkable, and we need to do everything we can as orders of government to bring them to an end, to protect kids, to protect communities, to protect vulnerable people. That's why we work hand in hand with local authorities, with provincial authorities on the plans that will suit them, that will keep communities safe. We know there's not one size fits all solution. We know that ideology isn't the answer. Only the application of science, of compassion, of investments that will help people through this terrible epidemic.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this young girl's family begged hospital treatment for their vulnerable teenager. Instead, she was given drug paraphernalia. This is all part of the radical experiment that the Prime Minister and the NDP have imposed and have contributed to 47,000 drug overdose deaths, with the biggest increases in the places where this approach has been tried. Alberta has reduced overdoses by 50% with treatment. Why won't he follow the science and back the plans that work?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
For anyone puzzled by the link or the not link to federal jurisdiction in that question, that was an ad in support of John Rustad, the BC Conservative leader who's about to be in a campaign, the leader of the opposition continues to focus on ideology while we roll up our sleeves, work with partners on delivering solutions for Canadians. We need to lead with compassion and science, and that is what we will always do.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it is federal because this federal Prime Minister has offered a criminal code and Controlled Drugs and Substances Act exemption to allow the drug dens to go ahead, and he has spent hundreds of millions of dollars on tax-funded, unsafe supply that is killing our people and addicting our kids. It's just like on car theft, where he's brought in catch and release and house arrest for career car thieves. Today, he has a chance to reverse himself and vote for Common Sense Bill C-379 to bring in mandatory jail time for career car thieves. Will he do the right thing?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, we see a return to the failed Stephen Harper tough-on-crime policies that don't work, Mr. Speaker. Mandatory minimums struck down by the Supreme Court don't work. What has worked, Mr. Speaker, is increasing the number of scanners after Stephen Harper's government cut them, increasing the investments in policing, in AI to process and discover which containers will have cars in them, to crack down on auto theft, to step up with science and solutions instead of just flailing around and using the same failed Harper playbook.
The Honourable Member from Laval, Alfred Pellat.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Alors...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians are going through a housing crisis, and our government is proposing real solutions to do something about it. In November, we signed a $1.8 billion agreement with the Government of Quebec to provide housing. Can the Prime Minister tell us about the results of that agreement, which will deliver in my riding, Alfred Pellan, and throughout Quebec. The Right Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Alfred Pellan. He has worked hard for this important file. In November, we signed a historic $1.8 billion agreement with the Government of Quebec to speed up construction of 8,000 housing units. We know that we can only fix the housing crisis if all levels of government work together. The Conservative leader's plan on housing is risible. In fact, it has been mocked by all experts. He wants to tear up the agreement with Quebec. He's not serious on housing. Instead, he's attacking Quebec elected officials. There's a lot of work left for him to do with these paltry policies of his.
L'opposition.
In 2015, Ahmed Faoud Mustafa El-Didi appeared in an ISIS torture video dismembering a human body on a crucifix. Yet in 2018, this NDP Liberal government let him in, later giving him citizenship, only to find from French authorities that he was plotting a massive terrorist attack on people living in the Toronto area. Also, this last several weeks, we learned that another potential terrorist gained access as under a student visa to plan an attack on New York City Jews. Why won't the Prime Minister reverse the damage he's done to our borders, secure our country, and stop the terrorism?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if the Leader of the Opposition was genuinely serious in his concern for national security, he would choose to get the top-secret clearance that we have offered him instead of putting forward this little performance. We, on this side of this House, don't play politics with national security.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Carbon Tax Carney is already getting his way. Only days after he took on the unofficial and unelected role as finance minister, we learned that the company that he chairs is now seeking $10 billion federal Canadian tax dollars, money to control Canadians' pensions. So he's gone from Carbon Tax Carney to Conflict of Interest Carney, and now Coincidence Carney. Will the Prime Minister cut loose Carbon Tax Carney and call a carbon tax election so Canadians can choose their future?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Hard pivot away from his security clearance, Mr. Speaker. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, he is jealous that top-notch economists and world-renowned experts back our plan to fight climate change and grow the economy, but he's stuck with late-night far-right conspiracy videos on YouTube.
The Honourable Leader.
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Carbon Tax Carney has nothing to hide. Then he would simply sign up and have an ethics clearance and an ethics committee review. We've tried to bring him to the ethics committee, mais le Bloc québécois a travaillé avec les libéraux pour
The Bloc Québécois worked with the Liberals to stop that.
Follow the conflict of interest law, but the Prime Minister refuses to swear him in as a public servant. So, if there is no conflict of interest, why won't Carbon Tax Carney do a full job as a public servant that can be scrutinized by our Ethics Commission rather than fleecing Canadians?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
So get this, Mr. Speaker. He's really cheesed that we didn't hire him on for the government payroll. That Mark Carney has chosen to step up to fight with the Liberal Party against the reckless and dangerous economic plans of the Conservative Party should be an example to all Canadians. People across the country are beginning to see how ridiculous and dangerous the ideas that the Leader of the Opposition are putting forward, and are stepping up to roll up their sleeves and fight back against that brokenist, austere vision of not helping Canadians, of hurting Canadians, of going back to a time where Canadians didn't have the bright future.
The Honourable Member from Brampton South.
Mr. Speaker, rental markets and home prices in communities across the country are making it difficult for Canadians to find an affordable place to live. The current systems in place to guide Canadians while they make these important purchases or protect them are not enough. Can the Prime Minister tell us what protection Canadians will find in the new blueprints for renters and home buyers' Bill of Rights?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member for Brampton South for her advocacy on this important issue. This week, we released the blueprints for a renter's Bill of Rights and a home buyer's Bill of Rights. It lays out a plan to help protect renters from unfair practices like rent evictions and excessive rent increases, something the Conservative leader couldn't care less about. The Conservative leader is a failed Harper housing minister with a laughable record. Lazy politicians come up with lazy policies and failed results. That's exactly what the leader of the opposition is after offering Canadians.
The honourable member from Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, people living in Gaza and the West Bank continue to suffer unbearable atrocities, and Canadians have been pleading with this government to do more to promote peace for both Israelis and Palestinians. And today, the Liberals had a chance. Today, they had a chance, and yet they failed to support a UN vote that demanded that Israel end its unlawful occupation of Palestinian territories. Once again, they're choosing whose human rights matter. Why are the Liberals refusing to uphold international law and protect the lives of Palestinians?
Hear, hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there has been too much suffering, from Hamas's horrific attacks on October 7th to the heartbreaking catastrophe in Gaza. It has to end. We call for an immediate ceasefire, the release of all hostages, an urgent increase in humanitarian assistance in Gaza, and for Palestinian civilians to be protected. We need to return to a path to peace based on a two-state solution where Israelis and Palestinians can live side by side in peace and security.
The honourable member from Kitchener Centre.
Mr. Speaker, it's been over a decade since my community was promised two-way, all-day GO train service from Kitchener to Toronto. Yet we still don't even have a timeline for completion. Folks in my community are stuck on overcrowded buses that are getting worse and worse each year. The federal government has already committed 40% of the project costs. That's over $750 million. Will the Prime Minister join me and local community leaders in calling for accountability from Premier Ford and to push for a timeline for project completion?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I thank the member for his question. Indeed, this government has put record amounts of infrastructure investment on the table to support Canadians in building transit, in building the infrastructure that they need on to get to and from work, to be able to afford better homes closer to work. These are the things that we're continuing to invest in, and we call on all premiers to step up in their investments, to work with us on investing, to not listen to their Conservative colleague in Ottawa who wants to cut and underinvest in infrastructure. Instead, work with us to invest in a stronger future for all Canadians.
The honourable member from Sherwood Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This Liberal government chose to fund a Russian propaganda film